Hello, folks. On this week's episode of Two Guys, One Coup, Jimmy's going to read us an op-ed from a doctor talking about gender transitioning surgeries. Probably going to be very surprised at what he has to say. Nebraska GOP, they make the Dems once again look like idiots. Not hard to do. There's a lawsuit going on in Clay County, Florida, from a parent, and we'll tell you that story. Guess what's happening in York County, Pennsylvania? And the Satanic Temple is allowed to go through with hosting an after-school program. That, and we also have our interview with Paige Miller. She is back, folks, and we have some pretty serious things that we discuss with Paige. So pay attention to that and a lot more on this episode of what, Jim?
Two Guys, One Coup.
Be right back.
Welcome to the Two Guys, One Coup podcast with Dale and Jim, where the truth matters and progressives' feelings don't. We bring you the facts from the perspective of two average, everyday guys who will never apologize for being America first, for adhering to our great Constitution, and for saluting the flag that our brothers and sisters have fought and died for. And now, here's Dale and Jim.
There you go, Jim. I let you participate in the opening.
Prepare me, man.
I let you participate in the cold opening of the show.
That's right.
How did it feel? How you kind of got your feet wet? Your virgin voyage into doing the opening of the show. I know I didn't prepare you. I wanted to be as spontaneous and have it come from the heart and from the mind. And,
it's always from the heart.
Have you think quick on your feet, which is
impossible.
Something you tend to lack at times.
Yeah, a little bit.
Don't we all? Don't we all?
Especially as I get older.
As we all get older. Folks, I hope you had a good weekend, everybody. Jim, I hope you had a good weekend. Stopped raining in Florida for 2 days, so that was great, finally. Good weekend. A lot to get through today, folks. We have some subjects that'll kind of shock you, but I want to talk a little bit about, real quick, I don't know if you saw this, Jim, or not, but did you see the list or the amount of gender surgery clinics or hospitals in our country now?
We shared it. You shared it.
Yeah. So 2007, it was one or two.
Yep.
And now we're over 300 across the country that admit to doing gender surgeries on minors. So, folks, that's why, again, as we approach September, we have till the 12th to get this Title IX bullshit stopped in its tracks. childparentrights.org/title-ix/. Go there, fill it out. I'm going to keep reminding you. And then we'll have an update, of course, after the 12th to see where this lies. Potentially, they could push it back. They won't go through with it. Who really knows what's happening? We do know they're bypassing Congress, and the gender transitioning of minors is growing and growing and growing and growing in this country. And I'll have a brief story on some of the ramifications of that here in a little bit. Jim, I also want to talk about Mark Zuckerberg and his amazing revelation to Joe Rogan. I like how this is getting, if nobody knows.
This blew my mind. I mean, it's if we knew it, but they're admitting it. So,
well, that's the thing. And then I'm going to go into a little bit about my thoughts on stupid Zuckerberg anyways. But in case you hadn't heard, last Thursday, I believe, Joe Rogan interviewed Mark Zuckerberg. They talked about Hunter Biden's laptop and how it was being censored on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, you name it, all across social media. And then Mark Zuckerberg makes a revelation that the FBI got in touch with Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg directly, and said, hey, we need you to put the halt on this. This could be Russian propaganda. So in doing the due diligence that Mark Zuckerberg would do, he complied with the FBI and basically hid it from public knowledge. Now, knowing what we know about Mark Zuckerberg and the fact that he and his wife donate heavily, in the hundreds of millions heavily, to Democrat candidates and Democrat nonprofits, do you really believe that it was all the FBI telling him and then he just complied because, well, the FBI said so?
Yeah.
It's bullshit.
Yeah.
Yes, did the FBI come to him? I don't doubt it. I don't trust the FBI. Yeah, I 100% say they did.
Why would he say something like that if they didn't?
Why would he say it?
Yeah.
Do I believe that he is passing the buck on, well, Facebook didn't really do like what Twitter did. Twitter was really bad. Facebook just made it less easy for people. This is his words, for folks to see it. So you censored it, is what you're saying, Mark. And we were getting banned if I posted about it, I got banned. So is that, what did you do different than Twitter there, Marky Mark? Yeah, so it's all bullshit. And it's a great revelation. And I understand that it is kind of shocking that, oh, you mean the FBI went to, who didn't know this, to begin with? To me, it wasn't shocking. To me, it was expected. The shocking part to me was how Zuckerberg was trying to pass it off as, they came to us as Russia prop. So we complied. We felt it was best. So you didn't do any research, Mark, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
You decided on your own to just say, oh, of course we're not going to show it because it does interfere with, could potentially interfere with the election. Well, it interfered with the election, all right, because it gave people, it interfered in a positive way for Joe Biden in the election. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on it, Jim? I think it's bullshit. I think Zuckerberg's full of shit. I think it did happen, but I think Zuckerberg is trying to pass the buck that it was the FBI.
Well, from that standpoint, absolutely. He didn't want Trump to win. I mean, there's no question about it. So he was going to do that. But the whole thing that I stick with is FBI. The FBI contacted these media outlets. Did they do that for Hillary during the 2016 election when Hillary brought up the Steele dossier? Did they do that?
Yeah.
Did they say, hey, guys, this could be Russian propaganda, which actually was Russian propaganda.
Correct. Russian propaganda.
Yeah, so it's all bullshit. I mean, Zuckerberg is who he is. And
Zuckerberg is who he is. He's
as a matter of fact, I wouldn't be surprised if he's at that satanic thing. More
on that later. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me either. You know what else I found just quite shocking? That happened after our last episode and into the weekend, were the two people that were arrested for finding Joe Biden's daughter's diary in a halfway house where she was at because of her drug addiction, hidden under a mattress. So why did these two people get arrested again? Why did they get arrested? She left it there. I don't know what's wrong with the Biden kids, but they leave their shit everywhere for the world to see. And maybe it's subtly and subconsciously a way for them to call out their daddy. Because they both apparently have daddy issues. Yeah. But they left the diary, and if you hadn't heard about the diary, it's written in this diary, and it's been released, and Project Veritas released it. Because these two people went to Project Veritas, I'm sure got a pretty dime for it. You know what I mean? But that's still, it wasn't classified information. This isn't National Archives shit.
Right.
She was on drugs, staying in a halfway house, left it under a mattress. That's exactly. And they arrested these two for it. So you tell me what you might or might not be arrested for in your life. Jim and I imagine, will have knocks on our doors someday because we do this show.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, I don't know where I was going. But anyways, in the diary, it states how Joe took showers with her.
Yep.
It was very sexually explicit stuff about Joe Biden and how he treated her as his biological daughter and other things in there. And it's why that's led to her drug addiction and all. I mean, I can't say if it's true. Can't say if it's not true. Not here to say that. But I'm telling you what, if that was Ivanka Trump's diary, if Donald Trump Jr. left his laptop somewhere, we all know what would happen. And it's a double standard bullshit. And I'm sure the FBI is directing the arrests of those two people that sold the diary as well. The most corrupt law enforcement agency on the planet.
Yeah, because I'm trying to figure out what law did they break.
That everyone's trying to figure that out.
And
what law did they break?
And if
you leave something somewhere, is it legally?
Now, she left the halfway house, right? She left the halfway house.
Yeah, she did. Yeah.
Okay, so whatever was left there, that
property of the halfway house or
but
finders
even
keepers
if,
bullcrap.
Let's just say that it could have been thieves. They stole it. Let's just say
it was.
How many times does the FBI get involved? I don't care if it's the daughter of the president. I don't care. Like you said, this was written before. There's no classified information in there.
There's no classified to the Bidens, of course, but not classified national.
Look, this was the biggest scam in the history of the United States. And I never would have guessed it would have happened in our lifetime. But this man should not be president of the United States, but they hated President Trump so much.
So bad.
That they put, a rapist. Because all these women that come out against him, all of a sudden, where was like we always talk about, where's the Me Too movement? Where were all of them helping these women?
I haven't heard from them in forever. Have you?
So
we haven't heard from Me Too in women's sports. We haven't heard from Me Too in underage girls getting double mastectomy. We haven't heard about none of it from that lunatic group of vagina hat wearing wackos.
How long was the Stormy Daniels in the news?
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I mean, it's
just ridiculous. The media's a joke. Zuckerberg's a joke. The Bidens are crooks. They're sleeves. They're criminals. It's crazy. And it's not conspiracy theory, people. Go on, Jim. I am ranting. Go on.
Well, that's okay, but I love Democrats. Okay, I do.
Oh, who doesn't?
Because we have to laugh at this. And I'm going to give another example. If you want to believe the polls that are out there, all right, the abortion and the green bill that recently passed has made some positive moves for the Democrats. Okay, it has. If you believe the polls, right? Yeah. So leave it to a party to then decide we want to get more votes. So we're going to cancel some student loan debt.
Correct.
Well, what they have to understand, those people that have paid for their student loans that were going to vote for them are now pissed because they're going to have to pay for these other individual student loans.
Of course.
So now they're taking a hit. I mean, now, granted, this bill has not, at least as far as I know, it hasn't been formally passed yet. It hasn't been put through, but leave it for a group who had momentum, going. All they had to do was fake and hold the economy up for just a little bit.
Just a couple more months.
Because let's face it, we have stupid people that vote in this country. And they're going to look at it and say, oh, yeah, look, the gas prices are down. Look where it was 2 years ago.
Oh, they don't.
They don't do that.
They think they're saving money because CNN tells you it just got a raise. We went over that.
But, and I'm sure you've seen the stuff going on Facebook. My mortgage, I identify my mortgage as a student loan.
Student loan. I identify my car loan as a student loan. Yeah, there's all sorts of those going around. Yeah. It's just like the Democrats to just insert foot into their mouth Folks, we're going to get into to the show. Reminder, we got Paige Miller at the end of the show. Really, really, really informative again. And we start off with her, and I'll briefly, we won't get into it because I'll get into it with her, but when we talk about the officer that was killed in Indiana and his younger brother and what he had to endure, just stay tuned to that for the end of the show. But let's get into our first segment of the day. Jim, I did a lot of talking. You go first, okay?
All right. Okay. We don't normally.
Jim's getting good at this. You're getting good at pausing.
I am.
You are professional. Thank you. I just want to go on. I maybe talk bad about you, and some people might think things out there like, Dale, you're just a little hard on Jimmy.
Everybody's actually thinking you're full of shit right now anyway. So
I think you're doing a great job. Okay. I want to just go on record before you get into your jumbled mess of a story or whatever you got. Bring it right back down.
We don't normally do op-ed pieces on here, right?
We do not normally.
Opinion.
Because it's an opinion.
Right? Now, there's some facts in these opinion pieces usually, but it's just this somebody saying. The reason I wanted to bring this up, because this title is, As a Doctor and a Dad, I am ashamed how horribly my field mistreats kids with gender-affirming therapies. And I think this is very important because of what we've been talking about and how we've been talking about it and everything. So because I want to talk about this right now. Because remember, this is his opinion piece. 25 years ago, when I was a young medical student, one of my first hospital rotations, the soft-spoken senior physician leading our team asked us one day on rounds, "What is all medication?" Met with blank stares, he then answered, "Poison." All medication is poison.
Not wrong. Correct.
Now, he didn't mean that drugs were given to our patients were killing them, but that we had a responsibility to be cautious when using them. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting that he started with this, because as we get to what we're going to talk about. Okay, it's a lesson many of my physician colleagues are ignoring in their opposition to burgeoning legislation in several states that would prohibit gender-affirming therapies for children with gender dysphoria, which is including Ohio's HB 454, currently the subject of contentious debate he lives in Ohio.
Yeah.
Those therapies include hormones to stop puberty and change external sex characteristics, and surgeries to alter anatomy to that of the opposite sex. As a doctor and a father, I have watched the role many in my profession have played in this debate with increasing concern and dismay. Physician involvement in this kind of therapy for children is horribly irresponsible and worthy of contempt. And you and I have talked about that. Okay. I think there was one time you brought up Mengele.
Yeah.
What is the difference here, guys? Okay, fine. Yeah, right. This guy was horrible. He did a lot of, but what are these?
What's the difference?
Doing? Right.
Exactly. They're legally getting paid to do it. That's what.
Exactly. Getting paid a lot of money, and eventually, I think it's going to get to where it's federal money, which is really going to piss some people off. All right. The standard in medicine is that the onus of in on those. Can I start over? The standard in medicine is that the onus is on those proposing any treatment to reliably demonstrate the treatment is safe and effective. In this case, children with gender dysphoria, the medical evidence for hormone therapy and surgery is weak and conflicting, with poor studies that are riddled with shortcomings and biases. We've talked about that.
We have. Yep.
Okay. So now what I want to talk about is he goes into, in contrast, he talks about how the United States is doubling down on this medical. You talked about it from 3 in 2007 to now we have over 300.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So now he talks about that in the United States, pushing forward, moving forward. Now, we've talked about this before on the show, but in contrast, countries like the United Kingdom, France, Sweden, and Finland have recently stopped this type of care because there's not enough information out there, and the studies are showing that this could be detrimental because we don't know the long-term effects. So kudos to those countries, but no, like typical United States stuff, we're going to double down on everything, right?
Because
we're
going to move forward.
Idiots that think this is what should happen.
Yep.
Now, his discussion, goes into from a standpoint of as a physician. So what's more, the ability of children to assent to any medical treatment is limited by the state of their brain development. It's long been known that the prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain that is responsible for planning and making impulse-free decisions, is not fully developed until about the age of 25.
Crazy, right?
Okay. That's why we don't let 10-year-olds eat ice cream all day long.
It's
why we don't let 16-year-old buy alcohol, and why rental car companies charge 21-year-olds a young renter's fee. Okay. So physicians who treat children with gender dysphoria know this well. But many inexplicably suspend the knowledge when it comes to life-altering hormonal and surgical therapy. In doing so, they betray the trust of vulnerable children and parents who have come for them for help. Now, I want to finish with, you know how we're always here about, you watch What is a Woman? These doctors say there is no harm. There's no harm for people. There is harm. All right. There is even an increasing chorus of voices within the transgender community itself, unlike my essentially judicial colleagues, recognize these issues with childhood decision-making and have spoken against the therapies for children. Gays Against Grooming, we talked about it. More fundamentally, the very notion of chemically and surgically altering a child because they feel like they are the opposite sex runs counter to some basic truths that humanity has traditionally taught its children, namely that their feelings sometimes don't reflect objective reality, and that they are absolute constraints in the world. One of them is being of their biological sex, and that their physical existence is not a mistake. The idea that their body is somehow wrong is a message that should never be given to a child. Now, he went in and discussed, we talked about this before, guys, the long-term effects. What is a woman? The person that we're, and I'm looking up some stuff on that individual, especially because they're also helping. They've got, but one of the things that they talk about, guys, is the number of surgeries that you don't hear about where they did go through it at a young age and then they had it go back later in life. But as they go back later in life, they're sterile. They can't have children. They have other physical bone structure breaks down, heart condition, these things. So when you sit there and hear puberty blockers and stuff like that are not harmful, they are. Okay. And then the other thing that is most important, okay, and here's where I think they get, the left gets away with this. The rate of suicide. How many times do we have to hear, well, we got to do this because the suicide rate amongst children who don't know, what they're confused about.
Gender confused.
So we need to allow them to do this. The suicide rate 10 years after they have all this stuff done is where it increases. That's what they're not telling you. Okay, so it's 10 years down the line, guys. It's not, everybody, because, everyone's clapping for him now. We're so proud of you.
It's the high. It's the immediate highs.
And
it's
then
like
they start
100 likes on Facebook post or something. Right?
Then they see in life that they start living where they don't have all of this attention anymore.
Correct.
So now you're starting to live with this. Now you got these feelings going through. You got all this stuff. And it's hard. I mean, it's hard on adults.
It's hard.
It's just impossible. And you and I have always stated this since day one. Children should never have this happen. You and I talk about 18, but we even say, okay, 18 is considered an adult. But even at 18, you should really be careful about doing this. And
I mean, I think 18 is when you start the adult mental portion of it. I think a child, if they're 14, 15, 16 and they're confused about their gender, I don't have an issue with the parents handling this situation and taking them to a therapist if that's what they choose, or talking to them, or however they want to handle it at that time. But I don't think any surgeries at all should occur. And we know that based on videos you heard last week, and there's hospitals. That was Boston Children's Hospital. That's one of the 300 plus that are across the country that are doing these surgeries, by the way. They're included in that group. But then at 18, you should have the adult portion of the conversations with them. Yeah. Okay, now we're going to go through this stage of, is this really the best outcome for you as transitioning? And then go into a separate kind of therapy for 3 until they're 21. Yeah. Give them time to get through this and talk to people. You can't just, whatever, Jim. I didn't mean to blab on.
No, that's fine. Because that's the point that we're trying to make here, is that now we're having doctors actually starting to come out. We're having doctors come out.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And I love the group. There's some groups, and I don't know if it was Gays Against Grooming or whatever, but there's some things going around. The LBG community doesn't like what those T people are doing.
It's 100% true. They don't fall within line. It's a different LBG is a sexual preference, right? That's your sexual identity. I guess at a point is that, you're a male who likes males, you're a female who likes females.
And I do think
you're a male or female that likes both.
And I do think it's possible at 16, maybe even at 15, 14, that you have an attraction to the same sex.
I do too. I believe that's possible.
More than I can believe somebody at the age of 13 or 14 wants to be the opposite sex.
The opposite sex.
I don't.
Exactly. And so the T portion of it is a feeling, right? Exactly. It's a whole new, it's not a gender issue. It's not a male female issue. It's a completely different deformation of your body feeling. They don't belong in that group to me. That's a separate, not that it matters that if they're, to me, I don't care if they're linked into the LGBT community, whatever. That to me is more about not letting minors do surgeries and shit like that. Right. So I don't care about that. But it does make sense to me that the alphabet people, that they don't want the T's in there at all, or the A pluses or whatever, the I's, and, I don't know.
Because in all honesty, it's making a mockery of what the
making a mockery, and everybody knows that
group has fought for,
and everybody knows it. Yes, and everybody knows it, and so it is. Wow, Jim. Well, that doctor, we need more doctors with balls to come out and just write op-eds or come out and fight against it. And like you said, they are. We know they are.
But one of the things we have to understand is why I believe this op-ed comes out and other people speaking out against this is because of the Title IX.
Agreed.
Think about this,
Agreed.
guys. The Title IX, what I just described to you with that in schools, parents have no business knowing, and Dale's going to have a story coming up. And
next step,
they don't care. They don't want the parents to know. You don't need to know. And guys, when we say you're taking parents out of these kids' lives in having the school raise our children, no. That's not, you're there to teach our children. You are not there to raise them. You are not there to guide them. Guide them in their education lives. All right? If you have a child who's emotionally distraught, fine. As a teacher, I really don't believe they're qualified to do that, so you send them down to the counselor. But when you do that, the counselor talks to the student. The parents have to know that child was down there at the counselor and what they talked about. Has to know. Has to know.
And has to know the entire conversation and be involved there with the child. I'll get into it.
It's a good segue into your story.
Let's just get into this. Okay. Be back in a sec. All right, Jim, jumping on
5 seconds.
That, because that's exactly the amount of time I've asked you.
You said be back in a sec.
But I've asked you
misinformation.
I've asked you to wait 5 seconds, and you never do.
But
here's what I get.
Be back in a sec.
Okay, Jim, here's what I get. Let's just pretend. Let's do it for the audience. I'm going to do both parts, me and you. Here's me. Okay, Jim, you're up first. Okay. Gonna.
Now, that was a while ago. But you said I'll be back in a sec. That is wrong.
No, I think what you didn't hear was it got edited out, cut out. It was seconds. I'll be back in a second.
Oh.
I know it's not proper English.
Nice play. Nice job.
But that's what happened. So I'm sorry if it got edited out. I'm not in charge of editing.
So fact checkers, you were wrong. It was actually 5 seconds, not 1 second.
5 seconds. Oh, I'm sure everybody just loves hearing the inside portion of our arguments we have off air.
And the funny thing about it is when we're together, we have these same arguments.
Same arguments. Obvious. Doesn't matter. I know. I wish I was recording us all the time.
Yep.
I'm sure the audience wouldn't, and we certainly wouldn't be allowed on YouTube. But I wish we were recording all the time. Okay, back to more serious issues here. Mm-hmm. Jumping kind of on board to the op-ed that you had before with that wonderful doctor who, thank you for at least coming out and saying that. You may or may not have seen it last week, but on Sean Hannity's show on Fox, he had briefly, like 5-minute really interview like Sean Hannity gives everybody, but he had Bernadette Broyles, who you've obviously heard us interview on the show, along with a parent, Mr. Perez. And I'll get into who that is. But this again goes back to child-parent rights and parents' involvement in their children's lives in school and schools keeping parents out. So Bernadette was representing Mr. Broyle, still is representing Mr. Broyle or Mr. Perez in a lawsuit. But here's why. The parents file lawsuit after 12-year-old girl attempts suicide twice at school after secret meetings. A counselor endorsed the belief that the child could be a boy. This is where this begins. After a 12-year-old girl attempted suicide on school property twice after months of meetings with a counselor within the school, the parents finally found out. Now, this story goes back a little bit to earlier in the year, but I didn't know it, and many people may not know it. Mm-hmm. But on January 5th, Wendell and Maria Perez received a call from Destiny Washington, who identified herself as a school counselor at Patterson Elementary School in Fleming Island, Florida. Fleming Island, Jim, is part of the Clay County School District. For those who don't know or haven't listened yet, and you should, we interviewed Tanya Kasich. I think, I'm sorry, I might have said her name, Kasich. Who is a chapter chair for Moms for Liberty out of Clay County, Florida. Anyways, the counselor, Destiny Washington, told Mr. and Mrs. Perez they needed to come to the school immediately. Washington said it was about their daughter, a 6th grader, but would not reveal any further information. When the Perezes arrived at the school, they waited in the lobby for 20 minutes before someone came to escort them to a room where Washington, the school principal, John O'Brien, vice principal, Courtney Schumacher, and a Clay County school police officer were waiting. Mr. and Mrs. Perez were instructed to sit down according to the federal lawsuit obtained by the Epoch Times, which is a paper out of Clay County, filed January 24th by Child and Parental Rights Campaign Incorporated, Bernadette Broyles. On behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Perez, Washington told the Perezes the reason they were called to the school was because their daughter had tried to commit suicide by hanging herself in the school restroom. Man. Sixth grader. Washington then informed the parents the reason why their daughter tried to kill herself was, in quote, because of her gender identity issue. And the fact they, in quotes, would not be in agreement with these changes because of their, again, in quote, Christian Catholic religious beliefs. Now, That's why this is the reason why they didn't involve the Perezes. As the Perezes sat reeling, Washington stunned them again. The January 5th suicide attempt was the second effort. Their daughter had also tried to hang herself the day before. Without explaining how the child survived the first attempt, Washington insisted school staff was not aware of the first attempt prior to the second. According to the complaint, the daughter sought guidance from a counselor because she was being bullied. She liked video games, which is something her peers say boys do. A friend confided she thought she was transgender, and the girl thought she could be transgender as well because she wanted to be strong and free like a boy. When the child went to speak to Washington, that's the counselor, she saw a lot of posters, literature, and other promotional materials related to LGBTQ pride in Washington's office. The girl thought those materials were cool and asked Washington if she supported transgender people. Washington said she did, at which point the child told Washington, in that case, call me M and he. Now, this is sixth grade, right? Though weekly private meetings over the next few months, the complaint alleges Washington endorsed the belief that the child could be a boy and called her by the male name and pronouns. Washington promised she would not tell the girl's parents. I'm going to stop right there for a minute. We know that part to be 100% true, right, because of who teachers and counselors we talked to while down in Tampa who insisted they would never tell the parents. Insisted. However, the promise of confidentiality did not extend to the child's peers. Washington began addressing the child by the male name in front of her friends without the girl's permission. The child was humiliated. The bullying for which she sought help from Washington escalated. As the child became more confused and depressed, Washington told the girl she would get all of the teachers to start calling her by the male name. After being told their daughter had tried twice to hang herself on school property because their Christian Catholic beliefs conflicted with her new identity, and being told they had been kept in the dark about the months of private meetings because of confidentiality issues, the Clay County Schools police officer then informed Mr. and Mrs. Perez that their daughter had already been placed in the back of a police car and was going to be transported to a mental health facility under the Baker Act, regardless of whether or not they approved. Now, for those who don't know, and you might know, Jim, the Baker Act is a way for somebody to identify that somebody's in mental distress, and you don't need permission. You can just, I'm enforcing the Baker Act, and they can take them away. Do I agree with the law? Do I disagree with the law? It's a fine line. I think there's good and bad to both of it. Here's clearly a bad situation because they didn't even inform the parents or give the parents the opportunity. Moving on here. According to the complaint, Mr. and Mrs. Perez were not given the option of transporting their traumatized daughter to the facility or even traveling with her to provide comfort. Instead, their suicidal 12-year-old daughter was taken in a police vehicle to an emergency room where she stayed until 4 a.m. when she was transferred alone without the comfort and or support of her parents to another emergency room and then admitted to the behavioral health unit at Wolfson's Children's Hospital. Jim, this goes on and on. I can describe the lawsuit if you want. Literally, I've got 7 more pages of things I could actually go through here. And I that's really all you need to know about the story. You tell me where this is. And thank you, Bernadette Broyles, for representing the Perezes. And I hope sometime to get Mr. and Mrs. Perez or Mr. Perez on to talk about this. it's an extremely private matter, and I'm sure it's very difficult. And there is an ongoing lawsuit that is happening now. Now, this did happen January and February, but the lawsuit was just filed and is still ongoing. So,
and again, a counselor who had no business, no business doing what
there's
they did.
There's compliance all through this school. The counselor, the principal, the vice principal, and a police officer who I don't know. I don't know how a 12-year-old girl, how they could not involve the parents in this 12-year-old girl. I know they're not there to litigate. Police officers, they're not judges, they're not juries, they're there to keep the peace. They're peace officers. That's what police officers are. So I'm not saying it's a police officer's fault, but me personally, as a police officer, I got to be like, I can't take this. This is her parents, man. I can't just alone let this girl go to this facility. She's already scared. She's already tried to commit suicide twice without you bastards letting the parents know at all that this is happening. For months, you didn't let them know that this was happening. And the counselor is the one that she didn't even admit to trying to commit suicide because she was afraid her parents found out she was transgender. She tried to commit suicide because she was bullied by kids because the counselor decided to make it public to the entire school without letting the parents know.
Right.
It had no problem telling that every teacher's going to call you by your boy name now, and the ridicule that kids will do in elementary school. Let's be honest. You laugh at when somebody farts, right? I mean, that's what happens in elementary school. And so this story just pissed me off to no end. Like, I can't take this kind of behavior from adults anymore. Literally, I don't know how I can get more involved in any of this stuff. I mean, really, honestly, look, besides donating and going to, any reasonable adult should be involved in this fight against this kind of nonsense. I mean, it's bullshit.
Go on, Jim. And what we're hoping is the police would have been the level-headed one there saying, okay, this child attempt, here's what we recommend you do. And maybe let the parents take the child as the police officer follows or leads, whatever. Follow me.
Yes.
Never take it. It's different. It's different if it's an 18-plus-year-old person.
Yeah, it is.
You take
that adult.
It's different with an adult. That person to this because they've attempted suicide.
Yeah.
But the fact that this police officer was told at the time that the child tried twice to commit suicide. Probably should have let the parents. And knowing the parents didn't know. So
right away, I got to be thinking, wait a second. Yeah. Like, wait 1 second.
But I do know a counselor, a principal in a school system that needs to remove top level people.
Yep.
There's no question. And they need to go away.
That is the Patterson Elementary School. And I don't know if they're still there, those folks. I imagine they are. I do imagine they are. I don't know if they are still part of that, but my guess is they are. The school board's going to do whatever. The National Teachers Union is going to do whatever they can do to fight this. And the Child Parental Rights website where Bernadette Broyles is in charge of, and her, these are a lot of pro bono cases. You know what I'm saying? Like they rely on donations to have litigations against this stuff. Yeah. These are not parents with deep pockets, a lot of them, that can afford attorneys and ongoing litigation against the largest union in the nation fighting them. These are people that they need donations to fight this stuff. They need help doing this. So, real quick, I have a denial that the school district, their denial, if you would like me to read that real quick, just take a minute. The Epoch Times reached out to Broski and O'Brien. So they're in the school board, just so you know, it's parts that I didn't read. But Clay County District Schools has not been served with any legal process and cannot comment on the content of any pleading filed with the court. Terry Daniels, Clay County District Schools Chief of Staff, replied, and quote, the district performed a thorough and complete investigation into this matter, and as it was presented to us, and has determined that the allegations made by this out-of-state organization, so Bernadette's based out of Georgia, organization, are completely false, fabricated, and appear to be intended solely for the purpose of inciting the public. All employees of the district consistently work to ensure that the best interest of all students are served. The district will have no further comment on this matter. Now, our good friend Bernadette, she replied, would you like to hear that real quick?
Yep.
Clay County District Schools officials claims that they did a thorough investigation into the Perez's allegations, Broyle stated. However, the district did not follow its own published policy regarding claims of discrimination, which provides that all persons involved shall be questioned. No one in the Perez family has been questioned regarding their claims, so whatever investigation was done, it was not done in accordance with the district's required procedures. What is more, these allegations are not being made by an out-of-state organization. They are being made by two Florida parents, one of whom is a practicing attorney who know their rights under Florida law. And yes, they hope to encourage other Floridian parents to stand up for theirs as well. So that is what the response is. Unbelievable. Bernadette, keep up the fight. You're wonderful.
Yes,
You're
definitely.
an absolutely wonderful human being, and we do appreciate you doing that. But I wanted to get into that. Just, I know I'm running late,
It's
so
okay.
I
Nope,
apologize.
that
But
was important.
Jim, you got something else you want to get on to another segment here?
Real quick.
Yep. I do too. I'll probably just jump onto your segment at the end before we do the interview,
Perfect.
just so you know. All right, you're up.
Okay, we've been talking.
That was 4 seconds.
That's sorry.
By the way,
My clock is faster than yours.
that's what she said.
We've been talking about these Moms for Liberty groups and other parental groups, not just Moms for Liberty. There's others out there that will read books in front of school boards, and the school boards will cut them off. Oh, this is not appropriate, and then find out, well, this is in your schools. Well,
I love this story, Jim. So go on, just keep going.
Democrat slams GOP for posting child pornography. Then people remind him where it came from. Democrats appear to be horrified in response to a Nebraska Republican Party Twitter account posting explicit cartoon-style images of what appears to be young adults, if not underage children, committing sex acts. Stop right there.
Yeah,
That's child pornography. That's it.
Bingo.
That's it. Child pornography.
Story over.
Okay.
Should be story over.
So now the Republicans, we apologize for the graphic nature of this tweet. We support Republican values candidates to protect children, their education, and parental rights. The tweet showcases the hard facts of what materials and books are in Nebraska schools due to Democratic policies and agendas, the Nebraska GOP wrote in a since-deleted tweet. One Nebraska Democrat in particular, former chair of Nebraska Democratic Party Vince Powers, was especially put off by the images.
Was he especially put off? Good.
Sadly for Powers, he failed to realize these are the very same images his colleagues in the Democratic Party have been fighting to keep in school libraries for months.
Yep.
Here's what he says. The Nebraska Republican Party has posted child pornography on Twitter. I won't retweet it. It's disgusting. He mentions the Don Bacon, Flood for Nebraska, Senator Fisher, and Jim Pillen need to apologize or need to condemn this sick public tweet immediately, or otherwise it will be fair to say each is okay with child pornography. This is what Powers wrote. As it turns out, the disgusting explicit pictures shared by the GOP account were from a book called, and we know this, right?
Okay.
Gender Queer.
Yep.
A
That
memoir.
Sure is a famous book. Yep.
Power's allies in the Democrat Party have been fighting to make this book available in underage schools for months.
Yep.
Gender Queer, the other books depicting transgender individuals committing sex acts, have appeared in schools in Virginia, Rhode Island, Florida, Ohio, and North Carolina, according to an October 21st report from the Western Journal.
Mm-hmm.
We see this a lot. This book on any Moms for Liberty group that is in these states that I just read.
That book's been there.
They talk
that
about
book's
it.
been, they sure have.
Now, here's my favorite. Okay. Establishment media outlets have covered the Republican outcry over books as if it was some sort of push for Nazi-style book burning. For example,
there you go again.
Take these excerpts from CNN piece titled "Book Bans Move to Center Stage in the Red State Education Wars."
Unreal.
Now, keep in mind Republicans are calling to remove the porn and other forms of inappropriate subject matters from school libraries only.
Yep.
Okay.
Correct.
Through battles over access of controversial titles traditionally have been fought district by district and even school by school, Republican-controlled states, including Florida. Everybody always has to say Florida. Georgia, Tennessee, and Texas are now pushing statewide rules to make it easier for critics to remove books they dislike from libraries in every community. This was from a CNN report in April.
Yeah. Yeah.
Guys, again, they are asking for child pornography to be removed from your school library. That's it.
I assume
I would.
Everybody's okay with that. That's a nonpartisan issue.
I hope everybody is for this. Because
they're not.
Anybody who thinks
that's bad.
They're a 12 or 13-year-old child should be looking at a book depicting sexual acts of transgender kids.
Or straight, even. You don't even look at like straight sex at 12. I mean, I get it,
okay.
But
again,
you know what I'm saying.
You're right. Let's emphasize that. I don't want them looking at any sex acts, whether it's transgender, homosexual,
library.
Heterosexual, nothing. They should not be seeing any of this stuff.
Correct.
But this is what the Democrats are trying to do. And I'm sorry, you guys should be in jail. Plain and simple.
Should be in prison.
This is child pornography. And not only that, whoever authorized these books, from the librarian to the school boards to whoever was responsible for this, when is the first lawsuit going to come towards these individuals for promoting child pornography? Because they are. In my opinion, they are.
I think that's a matter of that's got to happen soon.
They go to somebody's house.
It's got to.
And they see this book on their computer in their house. And this person sent this to people.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Is that child pornography? Is that distribution of child pornography?
100%.
100%.
100%. Yeah.
So
Jim, that's crazy.
This is all it is.
It's crazy.
I just wanted to make that quick because we talked about this for so many times. And
I just love the fact when a Democrat can insert their own foot in their own mouth after removing their own head from their own ass, that makes me happy every time. So, Jim, I'm hopping on this real quick. Just we mentioned at the beginning of the show, when we talked about it in the past, this Satanic Temple hosts after-school Satan Club at Pennsylvania School. I mean, it was months ago. It could have been even one of our first few shows.
I think it was.
Even remember.
It was one of the first half, definitely.
Yeah, but this just came out on the 27th of August that officials at a Pennsylvania school district are allowing the Satanic Temple to host a back-to-school event at a high school. Administrators with the Northern York County School District are allowing the Satanic Temple to host the event at Northern High School in Dillsburg, Pennsylvania. So if any of the M4L people are in that area or that district, there's one more battle for them. The event is a back-to-school night for the after-school Satan Club, according to Fox 43. The group tried to establish an after-school Satan Club at a school within the district in April, but its efforts were denied by the school board at the time, according to the report. Parents and community members were livid about the proposed group's attempt to enter the school district. Jennifer McAllister, a resident of Perry County, said in April that the idea is crazy. They already took God out of schools. Now they're going to let Satan in. And that's the point, folks, is what I want. What really what? If you're going to be, again, it's another example of being inclusive, right? Well, we have to include, but wait a second. I want to have an public school, after school Bible study. Or I want to sponsor a Bible study for a welcome back to school thing. Oh, we can't have that.
Well, that's what I was going to ask.
We can't have that,
That's what I'd like to know a little bit deeper. Does this school have a Christian?
They might. I'd have to look, Jim.
Because
that's a good question.
If they do, and if they have let's say a Muslim reach group, then freedom of religion, if you're going to allow these others to come into the school, do you need to allow the Satan? Look, I don't think it should, because Satanism is completely evil and all of that. However, when you start talking about First Amendment speeches, but you are talking about a public school. So there are special things that can be conducted, especially when people want to freaking fire a coach because he says a prayer on a football field.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Thank God. Thank God. That went all the way to Supreme Court. Thank God we had a conservative Supreme Court, or that he would have been still be allowed to fire. It says there that the club that is not interested in converting, they said that they're not interested in converting children to Satanism.
Okay. What's the point?
And it says trained educators provide activities and learning opportunities which students are free to engage in. Or they may opt to explore other interests that may be aided by available resources. The environment is open and parents, guardians are welcome to participate, their website states. After school Satan clubs are needed to provide a contrasting balance to after school activities at some schools, according to the website. So they're needed.
Just out of curiosity's sake, we all know. What's one of the big rituals of Satanism?
Well, it's like sacrificing animals, or
and eventually. So you take these
people,
kids, who are easily manipulated, and then you teach them. You're teaching them about Satanism. So you say, okay, some Satanism, they believe that if you do a human sacrifice, you get powers, you do all this stuff.
Yeah.
You see where I'm going with this?
You're exactly where you're going.
Okay. I'm concerned. I am very concerned because I can see kids being manipulated, especially kids that are in a group that aren't as well liked.
Of course they can.
As others.
Of course.
And you get one leader saying, look at the power we can have if we sacrifice so-and-so.
Exactly. Next thing you know, they're drinking Kool-Aid, or they're going up to see their,
It happens all the time, right?
I mean, it's cults.
Yeah.
It's cults, Right before we get to the interview with Paige here coming up, just one last brief announcement that, in sad news for America, Ozzy Osbourne is leaving and moving back to England to make sure that he gets away from crazy America, in his own words. This is 100% true. Ozzy Osbourne, folks, not necessarily the voice of reason most of the time, has decided that America's too crazy for the guy who wrote Crazy Train.
The man that's been dead for 20 years. He just doesn't know it.
And doesn't know it. Even he knows.
Honestly, I didn't even know he
crazy.
lived in the U.S. I thought he was over it.
It's just some odd news that I saw over the weekend.
No different than that idiot from Green Day, was it, that moved to...
It's not the fact that, Jim, my point was, which you've completely missed, because it went right over that head of yours, was not the fact that the guy's moving out of America. It's that the fact that Ozzy Osbourne realizes how crazy America's gotten.
I get it. Point. I get your point. The man who bit off the head of a bat.
Thinks this country's too crazy for him to live in. And he might be right. So I'm just saying.
You listen to the stories of touring with Motley Crue on some of those shows that you would watch, he would sniff up a line of ants, snort a line of ants, or drink pee. Anyway,
I mean, it's Ozzy. That's my point.
Yeah,
Ozzy Osbourne thinks America's too crazy.
Yeah, and you take it
anyways,
for as far as I care.
Well, it's with me too, but I'm saying. Yeah. Anyways, that's a horrible segue into our interview with Paige Miller.
But Paige would appreciate that one, though.
She would appreciate a story like that. Paige is obviously show favorite. She's been on multiple times, and she will be back again because we've got more stuff to talk about. But you're going to hear next her talk a little bit more about the microaggressions and the proper speech in school, but more importantly about a officer who was killed in Indiana and what his younger brother had to walk into school to see, and that's in Hamilton Southeastern Schools there, I think, if I'm not wrong. Is that right? Yep. So right there in her district, and she knows all about it. So folks, listen to Paige. We'll be back after that to wrap up the show. Guess who's back? Yeah, it's Paige Miller, Chapter Chair, Hamilton County, Indiana, Moms for Liberty. Thank you for coming back on the show. We could probably do a weekly segment. I don't know, maybe like, coffee with Paige or something. We'll have to come up with some sort of, because there's always some good stuff happening in Hamilton County, Indiana, and she is on top of it as always. Today, we've got a lot to cover. She's going to tell us about compelled speech. We'll go further into detail on that. Of course, all the nonsense going on in Hamilton County, especially Hamilton Southeastern schools. We'll review microaggressions again, because that is still a thing, believe it or not. But we really want to start off with, I think, the very, very tragic story about Indiana officer. It was Officer Shahnavaz. Is that how you said it, Paige?
Noah Shahnavaz.
Yep, and he was shot multiple times and lost his life. And his younger brother was still in high school, and what he had to see when he walked back into his high school after weeks of grieving his brother's loss. So let's start off with that. Paige, again, thank you as always for coming on the show. It's always a pleasure having you here. Unfortunately, it's always on subjects like this because it continues and continues and continues. But that's why you're out there fighting, because someday, hopefully, this all stops. Let's start with the story about the officer and what his younger brother had to endure. If you can go into detail on that, okay. We'd appreciate it.
Noah Shahnavaz was a 24-year-old police officer. He had someone pulled over for a street stop and never left his car. He was shot at, and 38 times. He was hit 30, and he lost his life that night.
Unreal.
The perpetrator that shot him had been arrested in Indianapolis for shooting at Indianapolis police officers, but was let go. We have a prosecutor in Marion County, which is where Indianapolis is located, that chooses not to prosecute criminals. And we're certainly hoping to overturn his job at the next election. But he was released and was out, and then he committed this crime. This young officer was 24 years old and has a family. His younger brother, his family lives in Hamilton Southeastern School District. His brother had been out of school for obvious reasons, and the parents met with administration and to let them know their son was ready to come back, that they would be sending him for his first day of school. School had already started. All the teachers were notified that he was coming back. When he went into his second period English class, there was a poster up that said, defund the police.
Unbelievable.
And
it's unbelievable.
It is, because here this young boy's lost his big brother, and just a horrific shooting that didn't need to happen. Shouldn't have ever happened, because that man should not have been on the street. And the poster was left up from the year before, but I don't care, because teachers were notified he was coming back. And so when you've got a student coming back from this, and I've had this as well with students have lost a sibling, a grandparent, a parent, you need to make sure that they're okay. That's all that matters. They're coming for their first day. They're already feeling behind because these other kids have been in school, plus all the other things they're feeling. Your job as the teacher is to make sure that your classroom environment is welcoming. Well, when you've got a student that's lost their big brother, who was a police officer and lost him in the line of duty, and you have a defund the police poster. That was on a Tuesday. The poster was not even taken down till Thursday. So, obviously this was very offensive and hurtful to the student.
Sure.
Obviously. So, of course, it came out that that's what happened. Hamilton Southeastern released a statement, said the Board of School Trustees, which is your school board, deeply regrets the pain that was caused due to a student-made research poster that was displayed in one of our high school classrooms. As a district, we recognize our responsibility to provide a safe environment for students to learn, and we failed to provide that in this case. Notice, they don't ever say the teacher failed to provide this.
Right.
They put it off as a student-made research poster. I don't care what it was. It never should have been there for him to return. And then he said, they go on to say losing Officer Shahnavaz. He was an alumnus of Hamilton Southeastern as well, who served his country selfishly, but what was protecting others in his job as a police officer was devastating. HSE has let the Shahnavaz family know how deeply sorry we are to have contributed to more heartache for them. The teacher involved has apologized as well and is deeply remorseful for causing additional pain to her student and family. All right. Well, isn't that great?
Sounds nice.
It does. However,
but
this family that's grieving says, because obviously they're reading this, they come out and say on August 21st, after this has happened, they reached out to the publication in order to respond to the statement made by Hamilton Southeastern Schools. So that was so egregious, they need to set the record straight. Just what they need to be worried about is the fact that Hamilton Southeastern can release a true statement.
Yeah.
So their statement was, we aren't prepared to issue a statement at this time, but we do need to correct the record due to a misleading statement made by the school board. The teacher did not apologize to our son for the poster being up. She told our son she was sorry he didn't talk to her about it.
Unbelievable statement.
So the onus doesn't go to her. She's not accepting any responsibility. The onus is on the child to report that offensive poster. That's not how this works, lady.
Nope.
You're the adult in the classroom.
Well, but see, with the people like her, with the activists and stuff like that, that is not an offensive poster.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
It's not. It doesn't, because it's their side, not the other side. That's how they always are. And so,
wow.
Yeah, horrible.
And
horrible.
talk a little bit more, if you can, about this teacher in general.
Oh, yeah. Well,
yeah,
she's been involved. In fact, on August 22nd, the council at Fisher's requested the police body cam footage from an April 29th, 22 incident that Marina Gibson, that's the teacher, and it was her interaction with the police. So that footage has been released. This teacher is an activist, and her social media is out of control. They did release the full video on August 25th, 2022. Let's see. Anyway, you can pull up that video. She's an.
Yeah, I will. Yeah,
there was also a remark where, if I'm not mistaken, that there was a young man in the school that was being taken out of because of drugs or something within the school, and she was yelling,
defund the police.
She was yelling, defund the police, and something about George Floyd too, right? I think George Floyd, and while the police were taking this kid out. So yeah, she's
she's a complete whack job.
Right, and she's a teacher. She is behind a closed door with students. My recommendation, if your kid's in that class, I would insist that my child is not in her class. Because
Marina Gibson is her name.
It comes to a point where it's a lack of judgment. It's a lack of judgment. When you question judgment, which I do, let's put her in a situation where she's got to make decisions. Do you trust her judgment that she's going to make the best decision for your child in an emergency situation?
Nope.
How many times do we have to hear from teachers and people who, like, we have to be passionate towards our students and their feelings? How many times do we have to hear that? But only if it's what they want it to be passionate about. She could care less about this child's feelings of her brother or his brother.
Right.
And that's what really is bothersome to me. It's that we got to teach compassion. We got to teach compassion only if you want to change your sex.
And empathy. We're going to be empathetic, but not to him.
Yeah, but not to him. It's empathetic and it's compassionate to their causes, to their
typical
beliefs.
Left. That's
only
just what it
typical
is. Typical
leftist ideology.
Well,
that,
and
let's
circle back, because don't forget, Hamilton Southeastern passed that microaggression policy.
Yeah, this is good.
Let's do it. Let's get right into that portion. Right. Of it. Yeah.
So their policy states that microaggressions can be defined as everyday, subtle, intentional, or unintentional interactions or behaviors. Well,
go on. Unintentional. I mean, it's like, how do you know everything's unintentional? Can be classified as.
This clearly wasn't unintentional.
Nope.
So and it says the school recognizes the responsibility to educate students on the reality of biased perceptions. Issues regarding microaggressions may be addressed through restorative conversation led by school administration, teachers, and or guidance counselor rather than punitive measures. So I would like to know, and of course we'll never know because staff, if they get reprimanded, that's not public information. But all I can say is we need to get that information out there. And parents do have a right in a public school to remove their kids from classes. And when you have an activist teacher, judgment has to come into question.
Mm-hmm.
So let me back up a little bit there, Paige. When a school, when a teacher or an administrator gets reprimanded for something, that's not knowledge that is either released or easily found out, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you just
nope.
And is that because they're protected by the union?
Well,
is that a union issue?
It's an HR issue. Like if someone in your company gets written up, nobody knows about it. It's
only if something legal,
right?
If it's something like that,
okay.
Then it has to come out.
Wow.
But
trust me, there's some stories that go on in my local school district that if people only knew.
Yep.
So.
Well, and it goes on to say in the article, it is unclear at this time whether, given the intentional or unintentional clause of the policy, Gibson will be held to the same standards as students.
Oh my gosh!
That's the microaggression.
She will not.
She won't. I don't think she will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she will not at all.
When they never actually in their letter, they never referenced the teacher, her mistake, what she did wrong. It was
correct.
The school strongly regrets what happened, and and it's just. I mean, my whole problem, and we talked about this, is the fact that she had plenty of notice,
right?
Plenty to take that down,
and specific, and received
And it's not like she didn't know this child was going to be in her class.
Right.
So.
Correct. Yep. Wow.
Yep.
Wow. I mean, we'll have to stay on top of that and see what happens to Marina Gibson, because I feel nothing is going to happen. How long has she been teaching at this school? Do we even know that?
Too long.
Well, I mean, yeah. This year is too long, but I just didn't know if she was a 10-year
I think
teacher or if
she
she was.
I think she's been there 14 years, maybe. I don't remember.
Wow.
But she's been there.
See, I think a good teacher is like a good journalist. You don't know what side you fall on.
Right.
You just teach. You just teach. That's all you do. And now that's not the case anymore. It's just terrible. Well, I shouldn't say for all teachers. It's some teachers are getting out there, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, the leadership is too, Paige, all the way from the top, from the
exactly
Department of Education to the National Education Association to, I mean, you've got Randy Weingartner, you got Becky Pringle. These are activist people.
Yes.
And so that's just trickling right down to the teachers, where it's, hey, it's okay. It's okay to have a defund the police poster in your room, especially in a situation like this. They saw nothing wrong with it.
Right. And this is coming from the top down. This is, so all of these things that are happening, if a Christian teacher did some of this with the Christian influence, that would be held. I mean, you would be met with very strong opposition. Exactly.
Yeah. And potential firing too, right. I would say.
But because of these things that are happening, it's coming from the top down. And when you've got this, and I just spoke yesterday to a group, I will tell you, it is time for the dads to stand in the gap. These moms, we're out fighting like crazy, but dads, when there are conferences and there are meetings, when dad shows up, it changes the trajectory of that conference.
The dynamic is different, isn't it?
Absolutely. Because they can be having a conversation, I, as a teacher, and the dad would just say, no.
Yeah.
That was it. No. I mean, it wasn't, and there were times when, or yes, we are going to do this, or no, they're not going to do that. Dads change the trajectory. And when we've got Moms for Liberty, and I will tell you, we've got a lot of men in there. In fact, we've got men that are chapter chairs. The reason it's called Moms for Liberty is because two moms started it. It's not because it's only for women. And I will tell you, we are getting more and more men involved, because I said this yesterday, and I'm going to keep pounding it home. Your kids are sitting behind a closed door with a teacher for 6 to 7 hours a day. A teacher like Maria Gibson, who doesn't have them all day long, that you wouldn't allow in your house to babysit your children.
Correct.
And the problem is, we have so many good teachers. And I will say that 100 times over. Majority of our teachers, I do believe, are good and don't want to be doing this
as well. Yeah.
And even some of our activist teachers, if they were told, just go back and teach your subjects, many of them would be happy, because they don't have time to be doing all this either. They're still a good teacher. You can be an activist and be a good teacher. I'm not even saying that, because there are those teachers. But you know what? Those are the teachers whose kids don't know their personal opinions about any political thing. Correct. You can be an activist outside of school and still be a great teacher.
Correct.
But what I'm saying is, you can do those things on your own. This is never meant to be in the classroom.
Yep.
You should be neutral about the politics that are going on.
Right.
Yep.
And when we get dads involved, dads, you are important. And you need to stand up for your family. You need to stand in the gap for your children. And you need to say, no, this is not okay, not my child, and not ever. And so another
That's
big
a good point, Paige. Great point.
It is time for the men to stand up and start in the fight.
Agreed. And we've I think probably Jim and I have noticed too, as we get to know the Moms for Liberty different chapters and kind of get familiar with who all these people are, we are seeing a lot more men, which is phenomenal to see. Like you said, I mean, I think it all started out Moms for Liberty, and they were the ones who were, Tina and Tiffany started this whole thing, and then they were moms, they were involved in the school, and it just kind of generated to a lot of the moms kind of joining these groups and starting chapters. But there are a lot more men, but there could be more, and there needs to be more. So you're absolutely not wrong, and that was a good point to bring up. Paige, what is, tell me what compelled speech. Do we need to review that? Because I
We do.
want to know more about compelled speech.
Well,
So-
our First Amendment gives us our right to free speech.
Yep.
It also says that we cannot compel speech from students. For example, I cannot make kids stand up and say the Pledge of Allegiance in a school. I cannot compel speech. I can't make them say things.
Mm-hmm.
So, first day of school, we have an orchestra teacher at Carmel High School, and I'm sure she's a lovely lady. Because we've had people say she's a great teacher. That's fine.
Yeah,
I understand that. But a survey was given to students on the first day of school for her to get to know her students. First of all, this survey was given for points, which makes it required.
Yep, correct.
Mm-hmm.
And in the survey, it had the red asterisk. And if you have a question with a red asterisk, that is required for you to move on through the survey. And it won't submit until those fields are filled out.
Mm-hmm. This is all done on the computer.
And this is all done on the computer.
Yep.
The first question this student came to, and I want you to know, we got this information because this student was uncomfortable.
Yep. Correct.
Not because we were searching for something. And so she screenshotted this survey and sent it to her mom.
Yep.
So we've got a student that's not comfortable. The first question was, what are your preferred personal pronouns? And that was asterisk. Can we use your preferred name and pronouns when communicating with your family? If no, please type your preferences.
Oh, wow.
So, first of all, this family doesn't practice this culture of preferred pronouns.
Yep.
That's not what they do. So they're not buying into this culture.
Correct.
So she does not have.
Could a student have put NA or no choice of that?
They had to put an answer, but we do know some of our students were putting things like just letters, FGB.
Yeah.
Brandon, and those have not been acceptable pronouns. And I'm like, well, if you get to pick your pronoun, you get to pick your pronoun.
Exactly.
Mine would have been, oh, great one. That would have been me. Would have answered to it every time.
Which is exactly how Jim and I refer to you always, just so you know. Just so you know. Yeah. So we use your preferred pronoun a lot. So.
I have lots of pronouns out there.
Oh, I bet.
It's amazing how words can be used for parts of speech. That's all I'll say.
Yep.
And I'm proud of them all. But anyway, so under our First Amendment, you cannot compel speech. Now it's being compelled. And so that's a violation of students' First Amendment. Right there. Of all students.
Right there.
I don't care if they have preferred pronouns or they don't. You
doesn't matter.
Compel speech.
Correct.
Then probably the more egregious violation was, what is your personal email address?
Yep.
Now, students at Carmel can communicate with teachers through Canvas. Mm-hmm. So they have a Canvas, that's their forward-facing platform, and you can interact with your teachers. I did with my students when we were on lockdown and I was online with them. We interacted through Canvas. The thing with Canvas is it has administrative oversight. Everyone knows that's not private communications. Administration can look at all of those if they want to sit and read them. If anything ever comes up as a potential inappropriate comment or email between a teacher and student, administration has every right to go in and look at that. And we all know it's not private.
Yeah.
There is no reason for a teacher, not one good reason, for a teacher to ask for a private email.
Zero.
And the problem is that was also asterisked. So
it had to be completed.
Right.
In order to get points, or you get points deducted, right? If you don't complete
you can't submit the survey with an empty field.
Yep.
So in order to submit the survey, you had to give that. So once again, you're compelling a student to give information that they might not want to give. Well, you are, because they can't get out of the survey unless they do that.
Mm-hmm.
And the mom reached out to us. We suggested that she write the school. She wrote an amazing letter.
Mm-hmm.
And we will be getting some updates. I'll get those to you when.
Yeah, I was going to ask, because that's what I was going to ask. Did they? You talked about how this teacher was a good teacher. Like she's basically got a good reputation within the school. She's not.
Yeah.
Was there any response from her at all to why she's requesting a personal email address, or even putting the survey? Because this wasn't school wide, right? This was specifically
to her class.
Her class,
right?
And so that's just a rogue way of behaving. And so, did she have any response? Has there been any response?
Well, our superintendent, the good news, guys, is now, because this happened, they're going to put a policy in place for getting to know you surveys.
Okay.
No, we already have a policy in place about student interactions. There's already a policy in place about compelled speech.
Correct.
So that was a lot of who shot John in my mind. I mean, you better have this. Don't tell me you're going to do something. I'm sure they told the teacher not to respond to anything.
I'm sure.
Would handle that, which I understand. That's kind of the way that goes. I think even more importantly, and the thing that really, after working with this parent that was just phenomenal, she said, I'm not an activist. She goes, I'm not someone that would ever get involved in something like this. She said, before I knew Moms for Liberty, I would have been mad and sad and furious and not known what to do. And she said, I wouldn't have done anything. And she said, it's because of my affiliation with you that I felt like I had to do something. Which is amazing. Which is a tribute to the cause itself and the people that are within the group. Right. And that's, that's what we're telling people. I can't run around and fight everybody's battle. Correct. I get calls from all over the state. This is what's happening and this is my story. And I listen, some of them will say, can you come to the meeting? I'm like, no, I can't. We have resources and things that we can help you with. But parents have got to engage, and they are. Yeah, they're starting to engage. And, we saw in Dade County, Florida, 249 seats flip the school board. Exactly. And what's interesting with that is, the people on here in my fan club, remember my fan club? We know them. Yep. They are losing their minds because Moms for Liberty, Dade County was able to do that. Exactly. Now they know this is the real game. Exactly. Yep. And I think what's finally happened with this gender ideology push that's this year, I think they've had enough. It doesn't matter. We've had enough. Yep. There is no reason to put gender ideology in an elementary classroom. Nope. None. Can't they? None. My whole thing is let them be little. They're little kids. Yeah. Why can't they be little? Why do they have to lift this heavy burden of their gender identity? They don't. On adult subjects that, to be honest with you, the whole gender transitioning, I as an adult can't wrap my head around. I don't understand it. I'm not in that position, so I don't get what they're thinking. And yet they want to throw this on the youth. And we of course know why. We said it for many episodes that, that's the way they gain control over future generations to meet their agenda is by controlling the youth. Why do they have to do it? Because they're psychotic people. Jim and I were talking a little bit earlier, and you look at countries like Germany and Switzerland, they've already stopped. They said, no, this is no bueno, not good. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Children hormone blockers. Yep. Because you can't pause puberty. I love to say that. Pause puberty. Yep. No, you don't pause that. You don't. All you do is you chemically castrate the child. Right. You're not pausing. You're stopping it, and it's irreversible.
That's the medical facts. But yet you have medical physicians who are claiming exactly what you said, Paige. We just pause it, and if they change their mind, we just go right back and they become a girl again. That is absolutely not the truth. Absolutely not the truth. So
we've got these LBG groups now that are dropping the T.
Yep.
Because they're completely against this going on in schools, and which of course they're the ones being now. They're the ones being demonized now.
Of course,
it's just it's
funny.
It's kind of hilarious over time, but they keep fighting too.
Mm-hmm.
They keep fighting the fight because it's like, no, our children should not be. It's like Lady Maggot.
Mm-hmm.
Children shouldn't be going. This is an adult thing. This is not a child thing.
Yep.
And I think we're starting to get major pushbacks, and I think it's the gender ideology that's really drawing everybody in.
Yeah.
And now that we're drawing everybody into the gender ideology, they're also now going to start seeing microaggressions. They're going to start seeing this SEL and all these other things for what they are. And I'm hoping we're going to see some changes because if I'm not mistaken, I think in the nation, 2 million kids have dropped out of public schools.
I think so
in the
far.
nation.
Yep.
I think
that leaves 70 million still in public schools.
Yeah, obviously. But again, we're going to get into the ones that are the kids that they're going after are the ones that can't leave.
Right.
And that's what they're doing.
But Paige, to be honest with you, what frightens me about this whole gender ideology thing, which we know is that's the big push, is this whole Title IX stuff, which I know you are 100% familiar with.
Yep.
That we talk about a lot. It's like there are pushback from groups, from the Moms for Liberty, for 1776 Project. There's a lot of groups out there, and Gays Against Groomers, and all these things are pushing this. But the Biden administration is bypassing Congress, and this could potentially be the law of the land,
right?
Coming up soon, and that's what, no matter what the pushback is, so what it's going to take, I think, is what you preach a lot, Paige, and that is get your kids out of there,
right?
Get your kids out of school if you absolutely can, and there's a way, and you've talked about it many, many times, but
right.
Go on.
Our count day is September, and it's a week of September, and it'll be interesting because that's how the schools get funded for the semester.
Okay.
And then there's another count day in January. Okay. And so it'll be very interesting to see what our count is across Hamilton County, how many students, because students represent dollars.
Yep.
And once schools can't meet their budgets, right now, I wish any school district good luck trying to fund a referendum, because I don't think you're going to get community support right now behind a referendum.
No way.
And, some of these referendums are coming up, and our school safety referendum, one of them ends in 2024. Well, the first thing they did with that was hire a DIE officer for $90,000 a year. So that's how that's funded. How are you going to fund that when the referendum goes away?
Correct.
So it'll be interesting to watch the money. Always watch the money, because the money will tell you where things are going.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yep. Exactly.
There's another thing I wanted to share with you guys.
Please.
I think you guys can have some fun with this.
Okay.
We like to do that.
Yeah, we do.
And I like to bring the fun because I can.
Because you can.
School districts are that ridiculous.
Yeah.
And once again, and I will tell you, being the chapter chair in Hamilton County it's a full-time job.
Yeah.
And Hamilton Southeastern can't stay out of the national news spotlight. And and I will tell you, it's really kind of like shooting ducks on a pond. They're just and sitting. I mean, they're just targets. But that's because they do such dumb things. Well, we've got a new one.
Okay.
Hamilton Southeastern encourages staff to stop using gender-affirming names, as they call students. So they've given them a list of gender-neutral terms to address a group.
You're kidding me.
And they range from the scary, to the ridiculous, to the offensive.
Mm-hmm.
And
these are names, Paige, before we go on, that they are encouraging them to call.
Yes, for teachers to
students.
call their students.
Their students. Okay. All right. Hit us with them. Let's hear them.
Comrades.
That. What?
I feel like I should play that game. I'm going to say a word, and you say the first thing that comes to mind.
It comes to mind.
Comrades.
Yeah, Russia.
Okay.
Communism.
Hey, ding. That's
Communism.
it. It's kind of like the word password game. Ding. That's
it. Ding.
So we've got comrades.
Wow.
This is another family favorite here.
Mm-hmm.
Ladies and gentle thems.
I can't even. It's like even hard to say. Like ladies.
Well, because when you say it, it sounds like you're saying ladies and gentlemen.
Right.
But that's not what it is.
But I feel
that's
I feel that's like how Mike Tyson would say it, like ladies and gentlemen. You know?
Gentlemen. Can you imagine being just an individual that doesn't know any of this is going on, and you're standing in a hallway, and a teacher says, "All right, ladies and gentlemen." I mean, they'd be like, "What are you doing?"
Like they got a speech impediment or something.
Yeah.
What is that? Wow. That's the worst.
Yes. Morning Glories. Now, if you go back to the 60s, I believe that is a drug reference.
Some sort of like LSD or something. I don't know. I mean, I don't know much about drugs. Jim might, but
yeah,
I don't. Yeah.
Let's see. We've got meow and meows.
I can't even with that one.
Right.
Meow and meows.
Yes. One, if my daughter had a male teacher and ever came home and said that teacher had called them cool cats and kittens.
Yeah. That teacher needs to be behind bars.
I would have a big problem.
Young daughter, kid.
Yes.
You know.
Homies.
What that? I can't even like I mean, I don't even know how to get into this one without being more offensive.
Call them crackers. Just call them crackers. I mean,
homies. What's up, homies? Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This is great.
Yeah.
This is unbelievable.
Fam jam.
I don't even know fam jam.
Like their family, you know.
Yeah.
The school family.
Oh,
we all know what that means.
Wink is right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paige, again for coming on the show. As always, your presence is super welcome. Again, you might have noticed an abrupt ending to Paige's interview. That's an error on her end, and I think we'll have it addressed by next
our
time
producers are working on that problem, so
they're working on it.
They'll
get to it eventually. Yeah. So if the editing's a little off, we just hired a new editor.
Yeah.
So he's kind of learning the ropes, and so we'll see. But anyways, Paige, thank you again for all of that information. It's super, super important that you continue to hear what's going on. No matter what the fight is, there's still craziness happening in the school districts and in a place where their Moms for Liberty has a presence like no other. I mean, there's a lot of folks there fighting for this. So imagine what they're doing in your town, guys, without that presence. Again, thank you, Paige. We really do appreciate it. We look forward always to you being on the show and to the next time you come on. Folks, don't forget about Title IX. Again, we mentioned it at the top of the show. I will mention it again. Please go there, fill out the forms, stop Biden's stupid mess on this, trying to absolutely revamp it. It will destroy girls and boys, minors within the school system or wherever. But go to childparent.org/title-ix/. Complete that, fill it out. We got till September 12th. Yeah. Go to momsforliberty.org to donate there as well or buy some merch. Mm-hmm. They got great merch for sure. We wear it. Our wives wear it. They use it. The bags and all that every day. Yeah. My wife uses that bag. That very well made stuff. But go ahead and support them. They need your help. And thank you all. Before we even get to the end of the show here, thank you all for your continued support. We are growing and growing and growing and growing. The episode with January and Bernadette has just blown up. I mean, it is blown up, folks. And we thank you for that, because that's the Title IX one.
Right. That's the one
where you get to hear all about it. And that's the one, that you really, 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 that's just so important, that episode. So we appreciate it. It's been shared. It's been listened to. It's been downloaded the most out of any episode we've ever had. In case you don't know, that's episode 54. But don't stop there. Download 55, 56. This episode, 57, whatever. Keep downloading them and sharing them, which you are, and we really do appreciate it so much. This stuff needs to get out there. Yeah. Jim, what do you want to add here at the end of the show? Anything?
We're just two guys that we'd have talked a lot about transgender. We talked a lot about schools because we feel that's important, and that's where they're attacking. That's where the left is going after. So we feel it's important. We have teamed up, if you will, with Moms for Liberty Group because we believe in what they say. We believe in what they do. Yeah. And it's not just that. We support Gays Against Grooming. We support Lady MAGA. I mean, we support all of these groups that we come together to say
indoctrinating
children do not need to be taught this. We need to teach our children. I don't
care what group you're in.
And while China and Japan, Germany children are far exceeding ours because they're not being taught this stuff. They're being taught calculus, or pre-calc. They're being taught that, not how your feelings are. How do you feel about math? Well, we know how people feel about math. I mean,
we hate it. Everybody hates it.
But we do. We talk about it a lot. We are, but we're just two average guys. And we always talk about that. We're two average guys. Yep. We're not these big shots that have these, shows that are on major networks or anything. We would love to, but we're just two average guys that just want to talk. And maybe if you're not talk about things that maybe you're not aware of, or talking about some things that, given our perspective on it. Okay.
Everybody sees the headlines, Jim. Everybody can read a headline. Everybody can look at the headline and they know what's going on. And even the stories that we do. I mean, you and I are getting it from either they're being sent to us and then we got to do some research on it, or the research is being done and sent to us, which is really nice when that happens. But that's not often, but that's really nice when that happens. Or we spend our evenings and weekends researching. I mean, that's like what we do. And so we bring you it, and we hope to give you an opinion from, like you said, just two guys that are just living their life every day in the same stupid economic pain that everybody's going through in this country, and the same stupidness that we hear from the left in this country. We just, and hopefully our opinions probably don't differ from a lot of folks, but we hope to give a little different aspect of it, or whatever. Just maybe hopefully we're making you all think about what's really going on, and the fact that yes, the economy sucks, and the Bidens are scumbags, and yes, Zuckerberg's an idiot, and he's corrupt himself, and the FBI is corrupt, and we know that. But on top of that, they're trying to raise a new generation of people to believe what they believe, and they're doing it through the children in the school system.
And look at
that's why,
and go research what the most evil people in this world, in recent 100-year memory in this world, what they tried to do and where they go. It's the children.
Yeah. So children. You go after them, and you get them. You got a whole generation, and then some.
Now we do add some comedy. We want to do that because we want to. It's lighthearted. We want, we know we talk about serious topics, but we got to laugh, and that's what we do. I mean, but we really appreciate, as Dale was saying, everybody listening, everybody sharing, because we notice a lot more people are sharing our shows. Because we do. We like it. We enjoy what we do, and we want to get it out there, and we hope you enjoy what you're hearing, and that's what's really important. But
that is important.
More to come. We've got some more to come. Potential really cool interviews coming up.
We have one that's going to be on Thursday. That's the Thursday show. That will be another Moms for Liberty member. She's the vice chair.
Wow, there's a lot going on.
Hillsborough County. That's Alyssa Hines. So there's a lot going on there. So she's going to tell us a bunch, but her name's Alyssa Hines. She's the vice chair for the Hillsborough County.
Yeah, I forward a lot of
chapter
stuff on
Moms
there
for Liberty
to myself.
And then we'll give you at the end of that show what next week looks like, because we have We have a
interesting interview on interesting and hopefully
kind of a different avenue,
kind of a political type of a spin.
More political
interview. But we also want to. We're hoping to get some others. So stay tuned. Some, especially as we get close to the midterms.
We're diligently working on it all. So, folks, thank you, Jim. Thank you again, as always, for your contribution.
You too,
and the work you put into this. No, I mean it seriously. I mean, it's you. Yeah, you too. That's how you say it. That's it's love you. You too. Yeah, I know where that goes, Jim.
I've told you. I know everybody can witness this. I tell you, I love you, and you're my favorite person all the time on this show.
I'm your favorite person. I like the way you said it. I don't know if there was a comma there. You're my favorite person on this show.
On the show, without hands down,
everybody that you're my favorite person.
I like you better than me.
Person.
I like you better than me.
Don't sell yourself. Don't sell yourself short. Although it's hard at your height, but I'm saying don't sell yourself short. Jimmy, you're the best, my friend. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Sorry we went a little long. Jim got dark at the end, like he always does, because he doesn't know how to operate anything. And we'll see you all on Thursday. Adios, Jimmy.
Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Two Guys, One Coup podcast with Dale and Jim. Remember, you can watch on YouTube and Rumble and listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. And if you like what you hear, go ahead and give us a 5-star review. We really appreciate it, and it helps others find us when searching for podcasts. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and TikTok. Just search for Two Guys, One Coup. That's the number 2, guys, and the number 1, coup, C-O-U-P. Thanks again for listening to the Two Guys, One Coup podcast, and God bless the United States of America.